Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 393 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. If the third seal was broken, the Grand Emperor's consciousness would rush towards Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure, crush his consciousness, and erase it, turning Qin Mu into another him. The three types of heavenly eons technique that Shu Jun imparted to him nearly disintegrated when facing the Grand Emperor's consciousness. His consciousness was stronger than everyone had expected. Yu Tinga and Luo Wushuang were extremely nervous when they looked up and saw the Grand Emperor battle the Celestial Emperor seal. Ultimately, the Grand Emperor won and broke the last seal of the three types of heavenly eons. The three types of heavenly eons that Shu Jun had imparted was different from the one that Qin Mu modified. After Qin Mu's modification, the last test for it was the ancient Celestial Emperor, which made his three types of heavenly eons stronger than the traditional one. Yet it was still broken easily by the Grand Emperor's consciousness. However, after the three seals, this apparition created by the Grand Emperor's consciousness also weakened greatly. Yu Tinga looked up into the heavens and saw the apparition getting closer and closer, crushing the stars of Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure to the point that it was continuously shaking. Yu Tinga and Luo Wushuang's consciousness and vital qi kept surging in, allowing their bodies to grow in size. Whoosh! Their primordial spirits were faster, and they descended onto Qin Mu's divine treasure, and onto the Taiji diagram, accommodating themselves with its previous embodiment. They were of the Emperor's Throne Grand Completion Realm and the Numinous Sky Realm, so the arrival of their primordial spirits naturally trumped that of Qin Mu. Compared to them, Qin Mu's spirit embryo seemed extremely tiny and inconsequential. From the heavens above, the Grand Emperor's apparition descended and invaded the spirit embryo divine treasure. His huge face looked down and was seemingly curious about Qin Mu's divine treasure. A mere dead man like you dares to stir up the waves and the wind? Yu Tinga hollered, and behind his primordial spirit, his vital qi morphed into a towering and vast celestial palace. His primordial spirit rose into the heavens to take on the Grand Emperor's apparition. At that moment, Luo Wushuang clenched his knife and rose into the air to attack the Grand Emperor. Although the two of them weren't masters of consciousness, their cultivation was enough to convince them that they could put up a fight despite their lacking consciousness. At that moment, the Grand Emperor's consciousness rolled towards them, and both of their consciousnesses collapsed immediately. With their consciousnesses collapsed, they lost control of their divine arts and vital qi. Their primordial spirits fell out of the sky and were stunned. Use primordial spirit close combat. Yu Tinga hollered. Luo Wushuang nodded. Since their divine arts couldn't defeat the Grand Emperor's apparition, their primordial spirits had to personally battle it in close range in order for them to have a chance of getting rid of it. However, in battle, the primordial spirit was usually used for the long-range deployment of divine arts to kill the opponent. Using it for close combat was a taboo. This was because the primordial spirit wasn't a corporeal body, but the energy from one's spirit embryo and soul. Thus, if it was killed, one's soul would disperse. However, they didn't have a better idea then. Thus, they had to resort to it to have a chance of defeating the Grand Emperor apparition. The Grand Emperor apparition was formed by consciousness, and thus had no corporeal body either. His consciousness had no vital qi, his divine arts were weak, and he had no divine weapons. Thus, it was unlikely that he could cause major damage to one's primordial spirit. The Grand Emperor's figure rushed down, and Yu Tinga and Luo Wushuang's primordial spirits rushed up to meet it. They were about to act when, suddenly, the sound of a roaring dragon and tiger appeared. Multiple ferocious-looking dragons burst forth from the Grand Emperor's body and rushed towards them. Is this the visualization divine art that Celestial Venerable Mu talked about, where one uses their consciousness to visualize things? Luo Wushuang and Yu Tinga's hearts shuddered. This way of forming a divine art was different from how they cultivated their divine arts. It was a different cultivation system. Today's divine arts were built on the foundations of runes. Divine arts practitioners learned various runes and used their vital qi to shape the runes to allow them to construct various forms of their divine arts. During the initial year of the Dragon Han era, divine arts practitioners studied half-gods and ancient gods along with their runes to comprehend their meaning. They came up with rune systems as a result. For example, the 4 spirit divine arts came out of the 4 pre-celestial ancient gods: green dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. Yudu divine arts came out of earth count, and Xuandu divine arts came out of heaven duke. There were also the divine arts systems of Mother Earth and the star gods. This cultivation method had lasted for longer than 1,000,000 years. Those that weren't in the rune systems were the post-celestial great Taos, like the great Taos of the sword, knife, painting, martial arts, and music. They were post-celestial constructs that had no runes. However, the Grand Emperor's apparition displayed a divine art that was outside of this system, belonging to the consciousness visualization system. He visualized things like dragons, phoenixes, gods, devils, and other strong beings to help him fight. Despite seeing Qin Mu visualize banquets, beauties, and even a divine dragon on the way here, they never saw him use it to battle. Seeing this combat technique now shocked them. The divine dragon that the Grand Emperor apparition visualized was many times stronger than Qin Mu's divine dragon. It had a corporeal body that was as strong as experts in the Jade Capital realm, and it fought against them fearlessly. The skies were filled with ear-shattering roars from the dragons. Luo Wushuang and Yu Tinga were strong enough to kill the dragons. However, when their bodies fell out of the sky and onto the Taiji diagram, their bodies would disappear and become consciousness torrents that rose into the skies, once more forming divine dragons. The two of them couldn't kill enough of the dragons and got worried. The Grand Emperor's apparition's consciousness was too strong. If they continued, they would die of exhaustion and be unable to stop it. A part of the Grand Emperor's apparition's consciousness was used to block them. The apparition shrank and continued towards Qin Mu. It was then that a sacrificial altar appeared in the air in front of him. On it, a giant head opened its eyes as its empty mouth opened and closed. It laughed and said, "Long time no see, Grand Emperor." The Grand Emperor apparition, who was about to rush down, stopped as he gazed at that incomplete head. He asked curiously, "Xu Jun, one of the 3 primordial kings. You're still alive?" "That's right, I'm still alive." The consciousness from Xu Jun's big head rose and morphed into a giant master of creation. He clipped his head beneath his armpits and laughed. "Hee, you didn't think it was possible, did you? I was able to survive that battle. Grand Emperor, now that I'm here, scram." The Grand Emperor apparition gave a cold humph and plainly replied, "You dare to say that given that you lost to me?" "Pooh." Xu Jun coldly smiled. "If no one gathered the tribesmen to visualize you then, could you have won against the 3 kings who claimed the emperor's throne? Don't run away now. I'll battle you for 300 rounds." The Grand Emperor apparition snickered. "Your body is broken, and your consciousness hasn't recovered. It won't take 300 rounds to battle you." His body wobbled and split into 2. One of the new apparitions faced off against Xu Jun, while the other one continued towards Qin Mu. Xu Jun was furious. "Are you looking down on me? I'll show you my 3 enclosures higher knowledge." His consciousness burst forth as many star gods and devils of the Supreme Palace enclosure, Purple Forbidden enclosure, and Heavenly Market enclosure appeared. Their starlight morphed into a void storm, and in it, countless imposing gods and devils rushed out. They were identical to the ancient gods in form as they waved their weapons around, rushing towards the Grand Emperor apparition. Your three enclosures' higher knowledge is just that. Can it beat my great overarching supreme consciousness? That grand emperor apparition laughed and visualized various divine beings that battled those of Shujun. Shujun was furious, and his big head flew up and rushed towards the grand emperor apparition. That grand emperor didn't hesitate to meet him. Their collision caused Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure to fall and crack. The other grand emperor apparition came to a gentle stop in front of Qin Mu's spirit embryo and looked at him curiously. Qin Mu also curiously sized up this legendary being. The grand in Grand Emperor meant ancient, beginning, and initial. The title of Grand Emperor was thus only gifted to the initial and most ancient celestial emperor. Such a being naturally stoked his curiosity. Dragon Han Overlord body, we finally meet. The Grand Emperor apparition smiled. Qin Mu's heart trembled as he asked, "You know about me? When you were conferred with the title of Celestial Venerable Mu at the Jade Pool meeting during the first year of the Dragon Han era, I was there too. It was just that I was at the Celestial Heavens meeting under Celestial Emperor." The Grand Emperor apparition continued, "When I heard of your name, you had already left the Dragon Han Celestial Heavens. I hate how I didn't meet you." Qin Mu smiled. "When I transmigrated to the first year of the Dragon Han era, I saw many beings whose names were household names, but I also didn't meet many beings. In that case, I suppose you want to take over my body." The Grand Emperor apparition shook his head. "I'm not taking over your body, I'm merely borrowing it to live." Qin Mu was curious. "What do you mean by borrowing it to live? What's the difference between that and taking over my body?" "There's a big difference." The Grand Emperor apparition honestly said, "Taking over your body requires devouring your soul and using my soul to occupy it. Borrowing your body to live doesn't touch on the soul and is of a higher level than the former. Souls are important to you all, but we don't rely on them to live. We rely on consciousness." He gently smiled. "I'll use my powerful consciousness to wipe out yours, but your soul will remain. Thus, technically, the only thing that dies with me borrowing your body to live will be your consciousness. You and your soul won't die. That should be a small comfort for you." Qin Mu's gaze flashed as he smiled. Well said, well said. I'm grateful to be able to offer my corporeal body and sacrifice for you. How did you end up here, though?" The Grand Emperor apparition's expression changed slightly as he shook his head and said, "I'm fine with telling you, it's just that not telling you makes things easier." He walked forward and said, "You should go to sleep now." His body suddenly morphed into rolling currents of consciousness that went for the heart of Qin Mu's brows like a column of green smoke. It was trying to drill into Qin Mu's spirit embryo. Suddenly, the sky became unusually bright, with countless stars shining and forming a beam of light that fell from the heavens in front of Qin Mu. It was a heaven duke that looked like an old sage, who blocked the flow of consciousness created by the Grand Emperor apparition. Shua, shua, shua. Countless light beams fell from the sky. One star god after another stood up from the Taiji diagram and trapped the flow of consciousness. That flow of consciousness coalesced and became the Grand Emperor apparition again. He sternly looked around him. At that moment, he saw Earth count at the back of the Taiji diagram beneath him. All of these beings had Qin Mu's face on them, whether they were Earth count, Heaven Duke, or the star gods. The Grand Emperor's apparition's eye jumped and he laughed. "Celestial Venerable Mu, are you intending to recreate the scene in which the ancient gods surrounded and eliminated me, the primordial master of creation? Nice formation. Although, it seems to be lacking quite a few ancient gods. Are you looking for Mother Earth, Heavenly Yin, and the four deities of the four directions of the ancient gods?" Qin Mu smiled, and behind him, a primordial tree seed sprouted and grew into a large tree that reached the heavens. From it, a lady with Qin Mu's face walked out. At that moment, in the shadow of the Heaven Duke with Qin Mu's face, a female god appeared. It was like the Lady Prior, who had a male face, but a female body. Following that, the four emperors, the Million Bird, Black Tortoise, Green Dragon, and White Tiger, appeared from the north, south, east, and west of the Taiji diagram. They too bore Qin Mu's face. The Grand Emperor apparition's expression changed slightly, but keeping his cool, he said, "It seems that Shujun imparted his three enclosures higher knowledge to you, and you fused it with the great Dao runes to achieve this. However, you haven't seen the Battle of the Blood Rust Zone from back then. In your formation, two female gods from the ruins of End are missing. You also lack Celestial Emperor. You cannot defeat me." Qin Mu smiled. "In the spirit embryo divine treasure world that I opened, I am the Celestial Emperor." He shook his body, and it began to expand greatly. His soul and spirit embryo fused into one, and his primordial spirit was large, and had a thunderous voice. If I was going to reuse their method, how could I not have thought about that? His primordial spirit morphed into the ancient Celestial Emperor, but it still had his face. He furiously shouted, "Please die, Grand Emperor." All around the Taiji diagram, Heaven Duke, Earth Count, Mother Earth, Heavenly Yin, the four deities of the four directions, and the star gods rushed to attack the Grand Emperor's apparition. In a split second, the Grand Emperor apparition was drowned in the apparitions of ancient gods, like Earth Count and Heaven Duke. Boom. The Grand Emperor apparition was bombarded to pieces by countless attacks. It morphed into rolling consciousness that rose into the sky, then morphed into the Grand Emperor apparition again, with a cape that covered the sky. He utilized the great overarching supreme consciousness, and countless apparitions of ancient gods walked out from under his cape. The Qin Mu Heaven Duke lifted his hand, grabbed him, and hollered, "Get over here." A heavenly net fell from the sky like a cape and locked him in place. The Grand Emperor apparition was about to break out of it when the heavenly cycle star gods utilized the starry sky, which morphed into another heavenly net that fell from the skies, and kept him locked in place on the Taiji diagram. The Qin Mu Earth Count's horns became two flaming springs that wrapped around his body, preventing his escape. Mother Earth picked up the primordial tree, and smashed it on him, shattering him. The Grand Emperor's consciousness flowed again, and flew everywhere on the Taiji diagram. Yet, around him, the figures of ancient gods like Green Dragon, White Tiger, the Million Bird, and Black Tortoise surrounded him and kept him in the center. At the same time, Qin Mu's primordial spirit rose into the air. It lifted its palms and smacked down hard on the seals of the four deities. After a violent tremor, the Grand Emperor's consciousness shattered again. "You don't understand me at all, Grand Emperor." Qin Mu landed and stepped into the broken consciousness of the Grand Emperor. Around him were countless consciousness fragments that glowed like glass. His consciousness was almost strong enough to morph into matter without any visualization, which was impressive. "The strongest part of me isn't my cultivation realm, nor is it my vital qi, which is as deep as a god's, it's my consciousness." Qin Mu sized up a soul fragment and observed its marvels as he continued, "A long time ago, I was able to rely on my undying God consciousness, to not die even when I lost my soul. However, after I met Shujun and used his grand primordium origin stone to cultivate the three enclosures higher knowledge, my consciousness cultivation became extremely strong. You entered my divine treasure, which made you think that you broke the three types of heavenly eons that I had set down. How did you know I didn't do that on purpose? What if I let you in to refine you and swallow your consciousness? You want to swallow my consciousness." Those consciousness fragments that were like glass started to flow, encircling Qin Mu to form a giant whirlpool. The Grand Emperor's voice came and laughed at him. "Just because you cultivated a couple days' worth of three enclosures higher knowledge, you think you can fight me? Of course not. I wouldn't be able to defeat your consciousness with these alone. Qin Mu picked up a piece of the consciousness fragment, sized it up, and said, "After all, you're the celestial emperor of the primordial era, and the original owner of the Grand Primordium Origin Stone. In addition, you have the complete version of that stone, while I only have a fragment of it." The Qin Mu Heaven Duke rose and covered the skies. The heavenly cycle star gods orbited the skies, while the sun and moon sank into the Taiji diagram. The great sun shone brightly, as there was a Qin Mu great sun sovereign within. The full moon shone brightly as well, as there was a Qin Mu great moon sovereign within. Under the Taiji diagram, the Qin Mu Earth Count held his whip in anticipation. Outside, Yu Tinga, Lua Wushuang, and Xu Jun were battling hard now that the Grand Emperor apparition had no way to escape. The reason that you're strong isn't just that. You amassed countless ancient masters of creation to visualize you, to strengthen your corporeal body and your consciousness. You are, without a doubt, the strongest practitioner of the primordial times. Xu Jun praised you and said that you had the strongest corporeal body in history. Qin Mu continued, "In my opinion, the strongest corporeal body might not be you, but you had the strongest consciousness. However, times have changed." Suddenly, the Grand Emperor's consciousness fragments amassed again. He recovered his body and used his consciousness, letting multiple devils loose. He broke out of the lock of the ancient four deities that had Qin Mu's face and rose into the air. Times have changed. You're already dead, killed by the scheming of many masters of creation, in a peculiar place like the Great Void. Qin Mu looked up and saw that he had rushed into the heavenly web that the Heaven Duke had placed down, and he said, "You died with those masters of creation, and all of your consciousnesses formed this supreme consciousness realm. Most of your consciousness became a part of it, and the amount of consciousness you can use now isn't much." Boom. The Grand Emperor apparition broke again, Heaven Duke and Mother Earth hitting it until it shattered. His divine stone fragments morphed into torrenting currents that went into the Taiji diagram, as he attempted to leave from beneath it. In the next moment, he met the Qin Mu Earth Count. Qin Mu's voice came from above the Taiji diagram. Separated by it, he looked down at the Yudu world beneath and said, "Every time you broke the three types of heavenly eons that I set up, your consciousness was injured. When you came to my spirit embryo divine treasure, you were already not in great form. Add to that the defending done by the primordial spirits of masters like Yu Tinga and Lua Wushuang, the former of which being at the Emperor's throne grand completion realm, and you were forced to expend your consciousness to deal with the both of them." He didn't continue on, but the Grand Emperor understood him. When Xu Jun, one of the three primordial kings, blocked him, he had to spend half of his consciousness to deal with it. The amount of consciousness that faced Qin Mu wasn't much, so Qin Mu seized this opportunity, intending to capture the Grand Emperor's consciousness, and then refine it. He was here to borrow and occupy Qin Mu's body, to live by wiping out his consciousness. Yet, Qin Mu had lured him in to refine his consciousness, with the end goal of obtaining his techniques and memories. When one eyes the prey eyes back. Qin Mu was moved by his grand overarching supreme consciousness, especially after he came to the supreme consciousness realm, which allowed Qin Mu to see another path of cultivation. Although Xu Jun's three enclosures' higher knowledge was good, even Qin Mu saw its inadequacies, which made him desire the Grand Emperor's grand overarching supreme consciousness. The four ancient deities with Qin Mu's face sank into Yudu. They worked together with the Qin Mu Earth Count, and forced the Grand Emperor apparition out of Yudu to face another blow from Qin Mu that shattered him again. "How strong of you, Celestial Venerable Mu." The Grand Emperor's consciousness fragments rose into the air, and from them came the Grand Emperor's laughter. "I looked down on you and thus allowed you to gain an advantage. Unfortunately, you don't understand the grand overarching supreme consciousness." The Qin Mu Heaven Duke immediately went to stop him, but the broken fragments of consciousness moved and flowed into his body as soon as they came into contact with him. The Qin Mu Heaven Duke's expression changed greatly, his face contorting. In the next moment, it was as if he had two faces rapidly shaking. It was as if two people were fighting for his body within it. This situation was like two Heaven Dukes trying to split from one body. Qin Mu's expression also changed, and he rushed forward. Unexpectedly, however, when he came to the Qin Mu Heaven Duke, his consciousness within the Qin Mu Heaven Duke had already been refined and swallowed by the Grand Emperor's consciousness. The face of the Qin Mu Heaven Duke became that of the Grand Emperor. The Grand Emperor Heaven Duke laughed as consciousness fragments flowed out and drilled into the bodies of the 360 star gods that had Qin Mu's face. Those star gods experienced the same thing as the Qin Mu Heaven Duke. Their faces violently contorted before becoming that of the Grand Emperor. As long as I agree, I can even make the world become me. The Grand Emperor's consciousness flowed like flood water towards the four deities, Mother Earth, and Heavenly Yin conjured by Qin Mu. He laughed and said, "Unfortunately, that would be boring." Qin Mu rushed forward and taunted, "Unfortunately, you're still dead. You were beaten up by the ancient gods, and you fell to the scheming of the masters of creation. You were defeated twice, and today will be the third time." The 360 star gods led by the Grand Emperor Heaven Duke blocked Qin Mu as the Grand Emperor apparition sent his countless consciousness fragments rushing towards Qin Mu Mother Earth, like countless sparrows made out of jade glass, in an attempt to make her his minion. Qin Mu's expression sank as he sent the Grand Emperor Heaven Duke and various star gods that the Grand Emperor had converted into the air with a smack. However, he was helpless against the peculiar and unpredictable grand overarching supreme consciousness. The strength of the Grand Emperor exceeded his expectations. He thought that he had captured him, but the Grand Emperor was able to use his marvelous grand overarching supreme consciousness to turn the tables. However, in the spirit embryo divine treasure that I opened, I am the Celestial Emperor. This is my realm, my world. I am the master here. Qin Mu hollered, and the skies changed as 49 heavenly Taos appeared. They included the heavenly web, heavenly order, heavenly begging, heavenly seal, heavenly machine, and various other heavenly great Taos that materialized into tall and ancient-looking gods, who descended from the heavens to trap the Grand Emperor Heaven Duke. Another 23 heavenly gods appeared, and helped the 49 gods lock the Grand Emperor Heaven Duke in place. With a pull, the 49 heavenly Taos and 23 Xuanju great Taos were pulled out of his body, causing him to collapse and leaving behind nothing but consciousness. Those bits of consciousness flew about, trying to escape, before being trapped by the 49 heavenly Tao gods and 23 Xuanju gods. They worked together and smashed the bits of consciousness into pieces. The heavenly bottle god waved his hand, and a heavenly bottle appeared for the storage of the bits of consciousness. The 72 gods orbited the heavenly bottle at an ever-increasing speed, imprinting their own divine arts on it to suppress the Grand Emperor's consciousness. On the other side, the Grand Emperor apparition rushed into the Qin Mu Mother Earth's body, making her his. At the same moment, 36 Yuanju Tao gods walked out of the primordial tree to trap the Grand Emperor Mother Earth, pulling the 36 Yuanju great Taos out of her body, leaving behind only the Grand Emperor's consciousness. The Grand Emperor apparition immediately ran away into Yudu. As for the consciousness in the Grand Emperor Mother Earth, it was refined by Qin Mu. The Grand Emperor assimilated the Qin Mu Earth count, and immediately saw 64 devil gods come out of the darkness. They were a form of the 64 great Taos of Yudu, and they worked together to dissolve the Grand Emperor Earth count. The Grand Emperor apparition was furious, and he ran straight for Qin Mu's primordial spirit. He taunted, "Celestial Venerable Mu, can you still break down your legend into various great Taos?" Qin Mu's primordial spirit suffered a great shock, as its body was invaded by the Grand Emperor. Its face became contorted as two faces violently changed. At that moment, the countless gods like Heaven Duke, Earth Count, Mother Earth, and Heavenly Yin descended and surrounded Qin Mu with their palms stuck out. This is giving you a taste of your own medicine. Many gods pulled, and Qin Mu instantly fell apart into strings of great dows made out of countless runes, leaving behind only the Grand Emperor's consciousness. The Grand Emperor's consciousness was about to escape when strings of rune great dows coalesced to form Qin Mu's body. He pressed his palm down, and the other god's palms pushed forward. ZHNNG, ZHNNG, ZHNNG. The crisp sound continued as four impenetrable walls emerged to trap the Grand Emperor within. The Grand Emperor's consciousness became as desperate and rash as wolves and boars, yet he still couldn't escape. He was shocked, surprised, and furious as he asked, "How can your primordial spirit dissolve itself?" "That's because I originally had no soul, and was a mere bunch of consciousness. My soul was created when I broke the ground." Qin Mu looked up and saw that the consciousness of the Grand Emperor that was fighting Shu Jun, Yu Tinga, and Luo Wushuang rushed outside. He didn't dare to fight him anymore. Qin Mu couldn't help but laugh. "Grand Emperor, you're too timid." Snort. Part 393 end here. Thank you for watching.